Okay, we are live for another episode, and as you can see, we're back in the studio for more of a professional setting. So to kick this episode off, I've kind of sprung on Ryan. I've said, "You got to drop a fact, mate. You know, we need some facts." Okay. So I've told Ryan that we've both got to bring a fact to the table to kick off the episode in a fun way. And
so this is Hayden stitching me up as per usual, and I'm going to go with a personal fact here.
A personal fact?
Personal fun fact. I'm going to make it fun, make it personal. So, my first ever dream as a kid, career dream, I wanted to be a I want to be
a willy.
I wanted to be a killer whale trainer. And I was obsessed with Free Willy.
Really?
Had Free Willy golf, had Free Willy bed covers, used to watch it like most days I'd watch Free Willy, absolutely obsessed with orca killer whales. Still absolutely am fascinated by them today because they are just they're so smart, so clever. And they're just, I don't know.
Terrifies me.
We've looked before about going to, so some of you actually listen to this might be able to give me a bit of a nudge. I know one of my clients has done it before. But you can go to Canada and you can get in a kayak and you can go out and go see them and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's no recorded attacks from killer whales on that have ever killed people. I know recently there's been some of you at home might have seen this. There's recently been some, basically, one of these whales has decided that they understand how to capsize boats. And it's just one whale called Gertrude or something. And she's literally taught, this is how smart they are, has taught the other whales about how they can bash into other boats and capsize them. And she's been causing massive issues that she's been going around
just destroying the boats?
Yeah, literally just capsizing some boats and stuff near somewhere. I'm not too sure where in the world it is. Yeah, it's bigger. And the thing is, they're smart.
Sounds really safe.
What can you do? But yeah, my fun fact is that when I was younger, I want to be a killer whale trainer. Absolutely love Free Willy. I might even watch it tonight.
Is that where it's come from, Free Willy?
I think so. I presume so. Yeah, I saw Free Willy. Absolutely loved it. Was fascinated by the film. And I want to be a killer whale trainer. And then wanted to go see them. Had an opportunity in 2019 to go see them before I'd watched that have you ever watched Blackfish documentary?
Yeah.
So I was going to go see him and then didn't. It was in an aquarium in Spain. I was like, oh no, I can't do it. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. And then Blackfish come out and I was like, absolutely not. I was like, shouldn't have done this. Nah. And the thing is, I still get that when I go to zoos. Now I go to zoos and it's all great going to zoo, but you always see them pacing. You see the size of the boxes and you feel bad. Yeah. So that's my fun fact. My fun fact is that I once wanted to be a killer whale trainer.
Yeah. That is random.
Oh, there you go.
So I don't know why this popped into my head. This is how my brain works. It's so random. But I just randomly thought of this fact, hence why then I came out and said beforehand, Ryan, you've got to drop a fact for the podcast.
Stitch up.
But when I first heard this fact, I was like, that surely can't be true. And I had to look it up, and it turns out that I'm pretty sure it is actually true. So, did you know that in Alaska...
For goodness sake, get it out.
Did you know that in Alaska, it's illegal to whisper in someone's ear while they're hunting for moose? This strange law is part of Alaska's wildlife regulations, likely aimed at ensuring fair and ethical hunting practices and minimizing distractions that can be dangerous while hunting.
Where did you hear? Where did you hear that? Where did that first come out?
I actually think it was one of my friends. That if you knew him would probably make a lot of sense, but it's illegal to whisper in someone's ear while hunting moose in Alaska.
Well, one, I probably don't whisper into anyone's ear that often because it's a little bit creepy. Number two, I don't like hunting. I love animals. My mum is the biggest animal lover. You don't even kill spiders. You don't kill anything in my house. You save wasps, you save spiders, you save everything. And two, a moose.
Yeah, but it's a big animal.
I presume it's a big. Mate, have you seen the? Is it the moose? Is that the ones that are literally 2 cars high?
They're massive.
Ridiculous. Like elephants.
Humongous.
They're like elephants with horns.
Yeah, they're big.
They are a fluffy elephant with horns, but a little bit leaner. They've obviously been on a diet.
Yeah. Yeah,
Strange creatures.
they are big. But I'm with you on that with hunting. This is ages and ages ago, but I've got a friend that he does some hunting and so, well, I sort of say hunting like deer, rabbits, and stuff like that.
Your local foreign boy.
Yeah, but beforehand, I was like, I'm not sure about this, and I was kind of caught up in like all of the culture of it. And in that morning, I was like, okay, well, I'll come out. So had the shotgun, and we were on. I'm going to lose so many followers for this. We were on.
By the way, guys, I've never shot anything, never will shoot anything, so don't unfollow me.
Piss me off. And so I was on a quad bike, and he stopped and he goes, right, there you go, shoot it. And it was a rabbit. And so I shot it, but I didn't properly, I didn't kill it. And it was like, I basically had like, I don't know if it's caught his leg or something. And he was like, okay. So he drives over to it. And
disclaimer, if you don't like hearing about things, probably skip the next 2 minutes of this podcast episode.
Yeah, well, I went there and he handed me this knife and he goes, right, put it out its misery, kill it. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. I refuse to do that.
Do you know what's fun is I always say when it's because some people, like my mum's massively against it all, has been vegetarian since she was like 14 years old. And then has been pescatarian on and off over the years. If I had to do the deed, kill the things that I was like, do you know what I mean? Like kill the animals to eat them, I wouldn't eat them. You know what? This is really interesting actually to note here, because I don't see it and I don't have to be part of it, and I'm not having to take ownership or accountability. I will eat it, but if I had to kill it myself,
you couldn't.
Wouldn't eat it. Nah, couldn't kill a thing, mate. I haven't got it in me. Nah. I think it's cruel. I think it's horrible. And I don't like to think about it. And a lot of people here will probably be like, well, but you know it's going on. Why do you do it? 100%. I am choosing ignorance. I will hold my hands up and say that I choose ignorance. I live in my own little bubble and pretend that it just literally like I see it like a pelican comes down with a basket full of chicken breasts, like steaks and stuff,
and just
delivers it at Mrs. Smith. Here it is. Because otherwise I wouldn't. And you know what? It comes down to that. This is really taking a wild turn here, but it comes down to that thing of like of having to like be held accountable. So it's a lot like when it's like, right, Hayden, if £1 million went into your bank, no one knew and no one would ever find out, would you tell anyone? No. Okay, cool. £1 million went in your bank, but someone might find out because two people know, they just don't know what bank. Now because you're like, oh, well, someone might find out, right? And now you can be held, like, do you know what I mean? Like now you can be like morally like given a kick up the backside. Most people wouldn't have, oh no, I'd probably tell them, probably give it back. You see what I mean? Like when you're, or if you knew who, right, if you got it, didn't know where it come from and no one would ever know, would you keep it? Yeah. Okay, cool. What about if no one would ever find out, but you knew who it come from and it impacted their life for the rest of the time? Do you know what I mean? Like it's that morally thing of you're like, oh, well, I can turn a blind eye and just choose ignorance, or actually, no, I've got to know the truth. So
on that, so
this is the random start to a podcast.
Really random start. But we're
by the way, we are going to talk about female fat loss optimization. So if you're snoring, you're falling asleep at this point, do stay alive, because female fat loss optimization is one of the biggest things we talk about, and it is coming once we finish talking about £1 million being in our bank accounts.
So firstly, just want to put it out there that I would 100% be a vegan if I didn't like meat so much.
Yeah.
The actual process of killing meat, hate it. Like,
I couldn't be vegan, man. I love eggs.
Yeah.
And I love cheese.
Yeah. The process I don't like, but the taste, unfortunately, I do like. But a goodwill story here that I heard a couple of weeks ago.
Is this to make up for your shooting of the rabbit's foot?
Well, it's more of like doing a good deed, just like you were saying there about if £1 million hit your bank, would you give it back if no one no one knew about it? So I'm involved in like the old crypto world a little bit, like hold some cryptocurrency and stuff like that. And
good time.
in a couple of different groups and whatnot. Anyway, so I heard this story about some guy. So essentially, why, without making this a crypto podcast, like it's completely, so it's decentralized, right? Depending on what you're using, but you can, if I sent you, say I sent a wallet of money, that wallet is untraceable. I don't know who the wallet is. It doesn't have a name to it. It doesn't have anything. It's just like, if I say we only paid ourselves in
cash,
we only paid ourselves through our wallet ID address. Mm-hmm. you would have to give me your wallet ID address for me to know it's you. Like, I wouldn't physically know. If you just gave me a random address and I sent that money to you, I wouldn't know if it was you, it was your mum, it was like whoever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what happened is there was a giveaway, and a lot of people do this. They do giveaways where it's like, drop your wallet in an anonymous chat style thing, and I'm going to pick one person at random to get £200. It's like a way to try and grow your account, as in like grow your following, because people then want to do it and stuff.
Yeah, you're giving away.
So this guy was meant to, the giveaway was like £1,000. So he was going to give them £1,000. He accidentally sent £100,000 to this wallet, had no idea who the person is. This person could literally just like walk away, never ever.
No way they told them.
100%. Well, apparently, this is the story that the guy told. So he put on his Twitter, I've just sent someone £100,000. The winner was only meant to get 1,000. I doubt the winner is going to send me the money back, but I'm putting it out there as a gesture of goodwill. I'd love to see that. I'd love to have £99,000
back in my bank account that I've just lost.
The guy sent £100,000 back to him, but so where the story then continues of like the goodwill, the guy was like, this is obviously like a decent human being. The guy reached out to him, said, it was me, like, I appreciate, I entered the giveaway, blah, blah, blah. Ended up hiring him, that guy, who sent him back like £100,000 because they ended up talking, had like things in common. Anyway, this guy's a millionaire now. Like this person that was doing the £100,000 giveaway was well off.
Yeah.
But he's just hired him. He's now taken over like parts of his operation. Like, that's how they met, because he gave back that 100,000. So where you're saying, would you give back £100,000 if sent you? All of us are sitting here being like, no, of course I wouldn't. If no one knew, like I knew it wasn't traceable, you'd be like saying no. The return that guy got from that £100,000 was multi-million pounds more than the worth of that £100,000.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if ever you find a tenner on the floor, give it back. £20 on the floor, because you don't know you could become a millionaire the next time that you were there. That's kind of like what you need to remember now. I always believe everything happens for a reason, and I believe karma works in wonderful ways. I do always believe that. I believe that, like, you will get you do good. I don't do good things to get it back. Do you know what I mean? But like, I always think it's nice to pass good things on, because good things are more likely to come your way, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
In that sense. Anyway, let's dive in, because crikey, we've gone on a right old whirlwind here.
Fat loss optimization.
Female fat loss optimization. As you know, myself and Hayden over the past kind of 6 years or so now have been heavily involved in, I'd coin this. I'm going to go as far as saying it is like we were one of the first, I'd argue one of the first blokes to actually start talking about this 6 years ago. Like, predominantly on social media, of like really talking about periods, hormones, and not shying away from it. There might have been a few other people talking about it, but I really think we kind of like dived in head first to it, because ultimately it was this like taboo subject. People didn't want to talk about it. Again, there was a lot of women out there, women coaches that were talking about it, maybe out there, but there was no guys. Like, I'd probably go as far as that, apart from Lyle McDonald, who wrote a book all about it, which was the science stuff. And then on social media, we were like, you know what, actually, more people need to talk about this, understand it, because it's really important, especially for you to understand, but also for other coaches. Like, we should all understand. We're not taught it, funny enough, which we really should be, is taught a lot more in depth.
I think this is why it's so unique to us, though, and I know you've got a very similar story, but often we get asked, why do you work with only women? Like, why is it? And essentially was put in a position where I had no other choice or alternative to learn it. All of my personal training clients at the time were females. I had maybe a handful of male clients, but I could not wrap my head around why some would be consistent, some wouldn't be consistent. We'd literally hit a PB in the gym one week. The next week, they were like, could barely turn up to the session, pulling excuses. And this obviously went on months over months and months, and you're starting to think like, this can't just be coincidental that this is happening. Yeah. And then this is where like that deep dive went down into finding about fat loss optimization. It came from a genuine place of trying to help our clients. Like from a PT setting.
Yes, Matt. The funny thing is that you probably actually argue that like there's so many coaches out there who, I remember I had about 32 clients, and literally I had 3 blokes. All over the age of 55. And I kid you not, And I remember that, you know, some of them would get, the difference was is that some of them would get hot flushes and they get really hot in their sessions. One of them really struggled with their pelvic floor from pregnancy. Another one just wouldn't turn up to sessions when it was her period because she had such bad PMS symptoms, like cramp, hot water bottle, in bed, felt awful.
And at the time, like, your reactions to that.
Oh, man, I was awkward. I was literally sitting there going like, She's like, I think I might wee myself. I was like, okay. I was like, I didn't know what to do. And the other client would just literally text me like half hour before, like, yeah, look, I don't think I'm going to make it. I can't even get in the car. And I'm
See,
like, okay.
So when this would happen to me, like I'll hold my hand up at the time as a personal trainer, and when my clients were saying these things to me about, Hayden, like, I'm on my period, I can't do this, I can't do that, like I feel really like lethargic, energyless. My reaction is, we just hit PB last week. You think we're not going to be pushing ourselves to them? I didn't understand,
and that's it. You're not taught it. Like I didn't even understand what a period was. Like I didn't know what it was shedding, what anything was going on. I just knew that it's like once a month these girls bleed. And that's it. That's literally all I knew. And I knew nothing else behind it. And just kind of that one client, Pippa, who suddenly I was like, man, this is bad. Like I then kind of like realized how bad and uncomfortable. And, you know, some of my clients have menopause, but I didn't have a clue kind of maybe how that would impact them. And then, you know, one of our clients was like perimenopause. One of our other PTs at the gym was perimenopausal. She used to get hot flushed on shift and run outside, like, oh, getting hot shift. Like, and they used to make a joke of it, like, oh, and we'd be like, God, they're talking about like hormones and stuff. Like, geez Louise, like, it's uncomfortable. And now I'm like, why the hell did I not know this sooner? Why the hell were we not taught this sooner? Because it makes you a better coach, understand your clients, but also make your weight loss journey. Because a lot of the things that you find hard in your weight loss journey, I think we both agree, a lot of the things that women find hard in their fat loss journey can be down to your cycle and can be totally logical. Whereas at the moment, because you don't like, and this is it, like, you know, we've had clients that are like 40, 50-year-old women who've like, I've never understood my cycle or never understood hormones how the way I did. And you don't even have one and you know more than me. Like so many people like women obviously are like, it's really embarrassing that I don't know that you know more than me. And I'm like 40 years old. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not your job. I was saying, I'm like, it's not your job though, is it? Like you have it, you experience it. You don't necessarily know like the ins and, you know what I mean? Like I understand. I have anxiety. I understand anxiety. I understand the kind of like a little bit more because I've learned into it, right? Otherwise, I was just like, I just get anxious. But like, most people that have anxiety, for example, don't know the underlying physiological reason as to why you get it, what it's about. Like, it might be because of trauma, or it might be because of just chemical imbalances, but they don't really know what. Like, don't really know about like serotonin and all these different things. Because you're just not, why should you? You're not meant to. So I think this is also why it's really important to understand it, because ever since understanding it and using it in our methodology and our coaching and educating other women about it, we've just had better results tenfold. Yeah,
it's going back to like what you were saying about when women say, oh, it's so weird that you know more about my cycle than I do. Paul, I always wind Sophie up and I'm like, there's like, because we have for the last 6-7 years now, every single day worked with clients, day in, day out. We know, like, this is why it's always funny when you get abuse on social media for people being like, what would you know? You don't have a uterus, and like all of these like things. And it's like every day for the last 7 years of my life, I'm working, one of my clients is in her cycle, like every single day. Yeah. So I understand the problems. I understand the struggles. Like, I don't physically experience them, but I understand exactly what like you're going through. So when these symptoms start to pop up, like Sophie, I'm like, oh, should I stay away this week?
No, she's like, I'm craving chocolate. You're like, I can tell you what that is. And that's the funny thing is that it does, you know, and you've been like, I can tell you, like, you're crap. You're Jew, aren't you? You're crabby. I can tell. I can see. And you know, we take the mickey, and I'm like, oh, hormone levels dropping, aren't they? Look at the state of you. And it's just a joke. And this is where it then just becomes comedy. But it is really important to understand these things. Crucial. Because it just makes your life so much easier. And what we're about to go through, 11/11, make a wish. What we're about to go through now is like the underlying, like a bit like averages, so to speak. It's like the averages of like what women can notice, see, experience. Again, what you experience, the severity of what you experience, how you experience it, every single cycle that you have, it will all be different. It all takes down to one thing: collecting data and addressing. So what we're going to do here today is explain the most common things that you can see in your kind of like menses, follicular, ovulation, luteal, typical things that you see, typical things that you can potentially experience. And then obviously what you're going to need to do is like, okay, cool, right, I've got the plethora of these are the 10 things that I might experience. These are what I can do to help those things if I do experience them. I now need to go away, track my cycle, understand what's happening, why it's happening for me, and then make the relevant adjustments to me that work for me. And again, every cycle is going to be different. Like you'll see commonalities. Like, you know, a lot of my clients, like if they do gain a lot of water, they will typically gain 2 to 3 pounds. Like one of them literally, it is literally between 2 and 1 days before her cycle, it jumps up like clockwork. Others, it's like they don't have any water gain at all. Others, it could be 5 days before, 3 days into it. Like it's all over the place. So you always have to track the data. You always then have to work out, right, what signs, symptoms do I notice from what the guys have said? And then what can I try and implement that's going to help it when I do see it? It's all about being prepared. Like we're giving you the tools so that when you notice the issues at play for yourself, you have the relevant tools in play to like, not fix it because you're not broken, but to help create a much more comfortable dieting environment.
Yeah. And like that's really, really important because you may see a clip on social media, you may see us talking about something without the context behind it. But just to say now, like I have some clients that I work with that have zero effect through the whole month. Through their cycle, they feel fine, no energy issues, no hunger issues. Some people are fortunate enough to experience that. Others, not so. So before, like Ryan said, we get into those individual parts, let me try and break down for you in the next 60 seconds kind of how the female fat loss optimization works. So you've got that first phase, which is the follicular phase. This is essentially where all things are good. You can really optimize your training a little bit more. You can focus on potentially being more consistent with your training. Nutrition adherence should be higher, cravings would be lower. You have the ovulation, the midpoint, and then as you get past the ovulation and you go into like the luteal phase, this is where shit gets real. This is where things start to get a bit more tough. This is where you want to have considerations of actually dropping the intensity of exercise down because you could be more susceptible to injury. Again, because of the rise of your progesterone and the drop of estrogen, you can experience potentially some higher cravings. It's going to be harder to stick to the deficit. Saving grace, potentially burn anywhere between 100 to 300 extra calories per day. So
all individual. I always like to state that. I'm like,
very individualistic.
Some people might only burn 30, some people don't burn any, some people might burn more. It is all individualistic.
Very individualistic. So potentially for some people, it might not be a bad strategy to up your calories during that phase, give you a much better dieting experience when the cravings are high, you're really, really struggling, even potentially going up to maintenance for some calories, because then when we get back around to the follicular phase, all things is good, we can optimize and leverage the lower side of the deficit. So let's start off with phase 1.
I mean, you've kind of just told them it. Yeah, so phase 1's obviously, you know, you've got your menses. One of the typical things I think in regards to weight loss is the water gain, right? Basically, as progesterone up, it can block certain receptors which are involved in water balance. As that comes down, you can find that obviously then there's a water like flush out, as it were. So the issue obviously becomes is that you can see water retention. The issue that this prevails is that first and foremost, the scales go up, right? So when you are due on to your menses, you can find that the scales go up. The reason as to why that's frustrating is just because of your relationship with scales is when you see the scales go up, you typically think, oh my God, that's it, I've put on body fat. You can rest assured if you see the scales go up around like few days before your menses, few days into your menses, just know that it's going to drop. Or what I've had with clients before as well, is theirs is just maintained. Like they're literally like 81.2 for like 4 days in a row. And I'm like, you know that there's going to be a drop because no one's weight is that stable, right? So notice that in that first part, there can be a water retention issue, which can cause the scale weight to go up. Don't panic, don't do anything, don't change anything. The second thing I think that's worth noting, got an itchy nose. The second thing I think that's worth noting is that also with water retention, makes you feel quite like, you get bloated obviously because you're shedding the lining of your uterus, etc. But That obviously causes bloating. And then you got the water retention. So it can make you feel, I know a lot of clients are reported back, like not very comfortable, not very attractive, felt a bit meh. And it's like, so you're probably going to find that maybe your motivation to do things isn't going to be that great, because you're going to probably feel a little bit self-conscious. You're going to probably feel a little bit like, because you're feeling a little bit bloated, a little bit watery. So some self-compassion probably goes a long way as well. So that's kind of the water part. Did you want to add anything onto that, or anything else about the maintenance? Another point?
No, I'll just add on. So especially for, so if you struggle with kind of your relationship with the scales, you've got to understand that you can only ever compare your weigh-ins where physiology is the same. So you're comparing week 1 of menses versus week 1 of menses of month 2.
Yeah. It's so confusing. Yeah. You explain it and you're like week 7 of week 8.
So week 1 of month 1 versus week 1 of month 2. Mm-hmm. It's so important for you to do that, because as we talk about going through these different phases, your weigh-ins are going to be very, very, very different. So like Ryan was just saying there, whatever your weigh-ins is happening over that menses period is like, don't worry about what that is for the next like 5 to 7 to even 14 days. It really doesn't matter, because we're only ever tracking where the physiology is the same, which could be a month later, 6 weeks if you have PCOS, or even longer potentially.
Yeah, 100%. So for the menses, obviously water weight gain, as Hayden said, as we said there. So try to kind of like factor that in when you see the scales jump up or not move. It can literally be that. Like Hayden said, use the anchor method to kind of always compare the relative cycles to the next cycle. So you've got that hormonal similarity. You're meant in those kind of like that first, it's the menses, kind of like that first follicular area. You are actually meant to be pretty much in a better physiological state in regards to like training, exercise, carbohydrate utilization, as crikey, that shows you that carbohydrate utilization as well. Now, just last thing on the menses before we move into like the kind of like general follicular as well, is that like it is all individual. I know clients that like have been on their menses, been on the period, and they've literally been absolutely fine. They're going in, smashing in the gym, no issues. They haven't had any problems. I've had other clients who have literally, they will be in bed for like 2 days, cramps, had to even call off work sometimes because they've been debilitating. One thing, as I said, self-compassion. Magnesium can have a soothing impact on PMS symptoms. So if you struggle with cramps, things like that, having magnesium, glycinate specifically, can help with that as well. And again, always seek advice from a medical professional before taking any supplements.
Yeah, I would also just add in there, just to like we were speaking about, is so the 2 main hormones that are in play during the cycle is your estrogen and progesterone. And estrogen's often the hormone that gets like the bad rap in the industry, but I actually think it's probably the better hormone out of both of them. So from like physiology standpoint, this is why we say in that first week, or not that first week, but in that follicular phase in particular, potentially even for some moving into like the later stage of that follicular, that's where you should be feeling better, because estrogen is on the rise, which is the better hormone out of the both, and progesterone's down at the lowest point. So when it makes that shift into the late luteal, this is where you get that change, and this is kind of like the science behind it.
Yeah. So follicular, for the most part, you're kind of primed, right? You can train a little bit better. Your weight loss should be that. Yeah, there's going to be a little kind of water retention, and you might have some cramping. So if you do have that, magnesium, as we said, can help. Training should be pretty okay. Again, like the actual science behind training, there is no definite science in regards to like these things should happen at these points. As I've mentioned, like it's more of like a psychological thing, right? If you're watery, you're bloated, you're uncomfortable, it's more of like might not feel great training. Physiologically, hormonally wise, you should be good, but it all again is going to depend on how you feel, right? It's going to depend on how you're feeling during that. As you'll know, like some women, I'm sure you've had it as well, Hayden, is like some of our clients like don't feel that, like they're like feel a bit groggy, not that bad. Some clients are like debilitated by it. So it always is going to be like it's never a one size fits all.
Just to also add into that, because technically when we're speaking about follicular phase as well, it's kind of like follicular phase can be broken up into week 1 and week 2, can't it? Because when I've been talking to clients before and I've made the blanket statement saying, follicular phase, all things are good, you can optimize training. And they say, well, when does the follicular phase start? And I'm like, as soon as you like basically your menses. And they're like, well, that's when I feel worse. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, week 1 of your follicular,
so 3 to 5
you may feel rubbish. Week 2, you should start feeling better.
And then going on to that. Second week, obviously, yeah, like that. Once your menses is finished, should be feeling pretty good. And you also then, coming in towards ovulation, some women do during kind of everything's sweet during that point for the most part. Now, coming into ovulation, some women can see, water. Some women can see water gain. I had it with literally a client yesterday when I was showing her, and she was like getting really frustrated. Like she's literally lost like 20 pounds in like 10 weeks. No, not even that. It's less than that, 8 weeks, mate. She's crushing it. And she was like, it's really frustrating. Like, I can never get past this.
So 30 pounds.
Oh, mate, she's been to a barbecue, had alcohol, had bad sleep, was ill the week before, and now on a menses. So the past 2 weeks, it had been like a little bit like similar. And I was like, everything is pointing towards yes, that being like the logical answer, right? I can see it, you should be able to see it. And it's really interesting. And I know you've shown me with one of your clients before. You could literally see where it's like menses, follicular, ovulation, luteal. Menses, follicular 2, ovulation, luteal. You could see literally where the parts in her cycle were on her weight graph. It was really interesting. So ovulation, you can sometimes see some water retention. Not everyone, I'd say it's probably less people do than more people do, I think, for the most part. But also you have, and I'll pass over to Hayden, you also do have a slight increase in your testosterone. 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 How can that be beneficial, Hayden?
Sorry, what point are we, where I've just gone
into the ovulation.
So we're in ovulation now. Well, this is where you can potentially, because of like that spike you were saying in testosterone, this is where if you are a gym goer, you can probably strive to go for some personal bests in this time. Like this is where you may see like at peak performance.
Comment this whenever we're talking about this, just to caveat this is the whole way through. We're saying may, right? Some people might be like, oh, my performance didn't go up. Maybe it's all about like, look, you should be at it. It's all about testing.
Yeah.
Just to caveat that.
Like data is so crucial.
Something like, right, Hayden said I should go in there and try 1 rep max at end of week 2, and I'm going to crush 200-pound deadlift. No, you're not, Sharon. Chill your beans. What he's saying is you might be a little bit stronger. Maybe you get an extra rep or 2 out. We're not saying go for any powerlifting competitions.
Yeah. But I will like caveat that point, because as you do start to move into that, the luteal phase, which we'll talk about in a second, you can become more susceptible to injury. So it's a bit of a, again,
double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fine line. So I would just say, listen to your body. Listen to your body. How do you physically feel? I know some days where I have no excuse to not feel my best. My sleep recovery is amazing. My nutrition's on point. I'm not stressed. Like all of these boxes that I'm ticking. Yet for whatever reason, I feel like dog shit in the session. Like there's no explanation for it.
And it works other ways. Like when we're saying this as well, like not only are we saying like this may or you could, so you've got to ultimately track it. Apps like Clue, apps like Flow are really good for tracking your cycle. And you can start to see signs, symptoms, commonalities in regards to what you're reporting, how you're feeling, and what you're doing with regards to like your nutrition, bloating, water retention, scale weight, performance in the gym as well. Like Hayden said, just because we're saying this, and I always say this, like, I would rather you know all the things and you can find what works for you. Than some people are like, oh yeah, but because there could be an argument, right? Flip side this coin a little bit. By saying to people, in the luteal phase, you might find this high levels of cravings, that then you get the problem of the expectation effect of people then, and I've had this before with clients, of them like, oh, I know it's my luteal, that's when I over my calories.
It's an excuse.
And there's some, and it literally is. And I don't mean to say this, and I love you all listening to this, but it is an excuse. They literally use that late luteal as they're like, went over my calories, but it's luteal, so it's fine. And I'm like, hold on, every luteal, you're going over your calories for a whole week. It's not like even I'm like, you might find a couple of days. You're not going to find like 10 days worth of it or 2 weeks of the 2 weeks luteal. Gonna have McDonald's and some chicken and chips because that's happened. It's not what we're saying here. What we're saying here is that ultimately you have to think that it may happen, but don't take it as gospel, because I do think sometimes when you say things, I've had it before with clients where they've literally just like overate and had a pudding because like, luteal cravings.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
burn an extra 100 calories.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, yeah, you might not burn as much as you think, because that's all individualistic. But also, just because we're saying it, don't take it as God's gift that you are burning or you are going to get cravings, because that also then can become this like expectation effect where now every woman listening to this every fourth week is going to be like, I'm a ravenous, hungry wolf and I'm going to eat everything. It's like, look, some of my clients don't suffer at all. So don't assume, track and make data-driven decisions.
Yeah. Because I know we're really bashing home this point, but I think the reason that we're doing it is because we will get people comment on this podcast, send us messages and say, well, I don't have that effect. Like that's incorrect because of X, Y, Z. And it's like, this is why we keep saying, listen to your body.
Yeah.
Because there is no right or wrong here. There's some people that get to the luteal phase and cravings are zero, energy is incredibly high. There's no explanation for it because physiology supports that they should. We're just giving you the science, but you've got to understand your body.
Yeah. And then introducing luteal phase.
The luteal phase where shit gets real.
Yeah. It's just, for the most part, most women will always find something. I think I'd go as far as saying, after coaching like over 1,000 women now, most women will find something in the luteal phase that is a little bit uncomfortable. There is obviously some of you that are like, I never noticed it. That's cool. But there are some things during that part that you will be like, that makes sense. And that's more why we're telling you all these things, is that it makes sense and you can make an adjustment or change, or even just have the knowledge to know that this is why you're feeling like that. Rather than acting on impulse or acting on that feeling, you can then ultimately kind of, it's a little bit like the whole trigger and response, isn't it? It's like if we're saying like, look, your hunger might be up in the luteal, just be aware of it. Well, when you're hungry, it then just be like, you're going to think a bit more rather than being like, I'm just ravenous, I'm just going to eat. You're like, actually, I'm ravenous because maybe my sleep's impacted in the luteal and maybe my cravings are up because I'm burning a bit more calories. So it's not physiological hunger, it's kind of more psychological, partly, or my sleep. And it gets you to just think a second before you go raiding the fridges.
Yeah. But this is like, this is really the art of coaching for me, where it comes in, right? Because like I've just said many times, there's some people that won't struggle at all. And cool, you can do your training normal, you can eat normal, there's no problem with that at all. However, some of my clients that come to me and they're in that luteal phase, and I can see that their hunger they're reporting through the data that their hunger is constantly through the roof. Well, if they're following a training program that's at high intensity, I'm going to probably change that. I'm probably going to tell them that actually, do you know what? This is slightly counterintuitive. Yes, number one, we've spoken about maybe you become more susceptible to injury during that phase. But more importantly, if your hunger is through the roof already and you are chucking a ton of intensity on top of that through your workouts, it's only going to exacerbate the feeling of being like incredibly hungry. And it's going to be hard to stick to the deficit.
Yeah.
So it just comes down to like understanding. And this goes to actually, I know some personal trainers, if you listen to this, are probably going to hate me for it. But this is the problem that I see with personal trainers. It becomes too much of a comparison with how much can you smash your client in the gym and make them feel sore the next day. You're all waiting for that text to say, I can't move, I can't walk. But sometimes if your client's goal is fat loss, and they're coming to you, it doesn't even matter what phase they're in, but if they're coming to you and their goal is fat loss and you are doing a solid hour of squats with them, yes, they're hitting PBs, but they can't move for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, their energy expenditure is going to be down, which has no benefit to them helping them with their fat loss process.
This is why hiring a personal trainer is a complete waste of time. Sometimes, I'm going to reverse that. Not a complete waste of time. But this is why a lot of personal trainers, no offense, are shit at their jobs. They will spend 10 minutes warming you up, 10 minutes cool you down. Well, that's a third of your session. You spent bugger-assing around on a warm-up and a cool-down and some fancy stretches, right? Get your clients to do that after that, right? If you're listening to this and you have a personal trainer and they spend, out of your 60 minutes, they spend third of your time warming you up, cooling you down and stretching you, when they could tell you to warm up 10 minutes before the session. They could give you the stretches, run through them for one session at the beginning, and then you could go away and do them at the end. Cool. The second thing is that they're getting you to do fancy exercises. Like you're probably doing half of the volume that you could do because you're only coming to them once a week, because they're having to teach you these fancy exercises, which are like, I saw someone, I'm not going to name names, but someone in the gym that I go to doing overhead lunges with a plumber's pipe, with a resistance band tied to the end, with a weight tied to that, and they were called stability lunges. And literally this guy was having to be so careful because the thing was bouncing, it was swinging all over the place. And I was like, what? And I literally know as well, I'm like, if your client, and if you have got a personal trainer and you've gone to that client with the goal of weight loss and they're doing either what Hayden said of just smashing the crap out of you in the session, one, that's idiotic because it means if you've got sore legs or a sore body, you're probably going to do less steps. You burn more calories through those steps you do than those sessions. So that's idiotic. And number two, if they come to you for weight loss and you're literally doing fancy exercises for stability, using BOSU balls, and you're wasting a third of the session on that shit when you could probably spend a third of the session on teaching them about nutrition, then you are not doing a very good job. And that, hopefully, some of you will be like, damn, my personal trainer's crap. Well, yeah, so they should. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, that's just me being like real about this. I'm like, and I'm not going to stand here and say that I haven't done that. I have. And I remember when I transitioned being like, right, I want all my clients, they all warmed up before the session and that I sent them all a full body stretch routine and they all did a full body stretch routine with any adjustments they needed specifically to them. And I then had 60 minutes of working out for them and I gave them all an outside of the gym program to do at least once. And I also worked on their nutrition. Yeah. You still get personal trainers that are turning up, mate, and they literally do one session a week. They don't talk to their client, don't do their nutrition. And they look like Sharon looks the same as she did 2 years ago. And I'm like, there is benefit to it. But part of me, this is my personal opinion here, is I'm like, a little bit awkward that someone's paying you for a result. It's like paying someone to, I don't know, paying someone to fix your roof and they make the rest of your house look really fancy, but your roof still leaks. Well, that's great. You've got a fancy house. But if the roof's still leaking, then you never actually fix the problem that was there. And like trainers are just like, you're giving them the same sessions each week. Like there's no consideration as to like what they've been doing, their stress, their sleep, you know what I mean? Like really in personal trainers, you should sit down 10 minutes or have a text message conversation before your session the day before. Where are you in your cycle? How's your sleep been? How's your energy been? What's your life like? You got any major stresses at the moment? And then you build the session ahead of time in relation to like what they've actually got going on and what's going to be more important. Because I know you've said this as well. Sometimes your session is literally just being a gentle session of a touch up with a client because they've been super duper stressed and you found that actually it's more beneficial to actually have almost like a counselling session with them than smashing the shit out of them because they've got a lot going on. They've already got a lot of stress and actually it's not going to be beneficial because they won't recover from it.
Yeah, some sessions I used to do. Yeah, we're slightly getting off topic, but I think it has a lot of relevance because I think personal training is like huge. Like loads of people like actually look to have personal trainers and stuff. But some sessions that I would have with clients, we'd literally go for a walk for an hour because of the whole scenario. And I do think like this is where like I agree with 90% of what you said there for sure. But I think the actual caveat that I just want to add in is I think it has to be the conversation that you have at the beginning. Because if you have a client that comes to you at the beginning and they say, I've got this time constraint, or it doesn't even need to be a time constraint, I've got this goal of fat loss, and you are then doing that BOSU, overhead, whatever it is, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's a complete waste of time what you're doing. It's not actually, it's not contributing towards their goal. Yes, their stability may get a little bit better, but they didn't come to you to get their stability better. They came to you for fat loss. So you want to be challenging your energy elsewhere. But for some people, actually, they might hire a personal trainer that doesn't have anything to do with stability, weight loss, getting fitter. It might be a mental health thing where they actually have huge anxiety of stepping out of a gym and going to a personal trainer and being with someone is a comfort thing. It's actually something that they look forward to in their week. And if that's the conversation you have at the beginning, I don't really care what you do in that session with them.
Yeah, fair.
But I think the conversation has to be had. And I think that's maybe 5% of people. Yeah. So I'm talking 5% here. That's why I say like, no, I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said. Like 90% of personal trainers will do that. Because it's funny actually, because I had a client call yesterday as well, and we are so off topic, but it's really, really relevant. Last
one,
relevant.
Then we get back to just the luteal phase, which is important.
Yeah, it's really relevant because I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and they were talking about alcohol, right? And they were just saying, they're like, hey, it's the classic. So we look at what their week does. Like you get a spike at the weekend in their weight. So they're very weight orientated.
Yeah.
So we start Monday, we're our highest weigh-in. Monday, Tuesday, we see our lowest weigh-in on Saturday morning. Saturday, Sunday, we see the highest peak. Monday, we see a peak, and it's like this consistently.
Yeah.
But they're seeing those weekend spikes and they're getting super pissed off. So I had this conversation with the client and she was saying, that's it. I'm knocking drinking on the head. I'm not drinking anymore because I'm getting annoyed of the spikes. But I was like, you're consistently still making lower lows. Like we're still consistently making success.
Over a longer period of time.
So in actual fact, by you, let's just have a conversation here about this. Let's hypothetically say that you give up alcohol. What then happens? And she started to say, well, I probably don't see my friends anymore because that's our whole socialization. All of the girls, we go for food, we have drinks. We go for drinks, we have drinks.
Yeah.
We go wherever.
We go for drinks, we have crisps.
Yeah. We go to events, it's alcohol involved.
Yeah.
So if I eradicate myself out of that situation, I just don't go. So if I take myself out, I'm not going to that event. I'm not going to be drinking. Okay, and I gave her a completely different perspective, and I was like, so maybe we don't look at the alcohol spikes as a bad thing. We understand that that's going to happen. A completely different story if alcohol's then making you do stupid stuff for like the rest of the time, which it wasn't. So this scenario is different. But I gave her a different perspective and said, actually, I think probably alcohol in your life is a good thing. We just need to fix your relationship with the scales that you're having these spikes.
Balance,
because you're still making progress.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. It's like everything comes with a second and third order consequence when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to socialized drink. There's nothing wrong with drinking. Both me and you drink. It's just that you have to understand the impact that it has and what your priorities are. Like it's been summer, right? Everyone knows, for the majority of us, I don't know about you, Hayden, but probably you're going to agree, like I've drunk more over the past 2 months because it's been summer. Yeah, I've now noticed towards the end of the summer, and I haven't had any anxiety really for probably a good year and a half. I've now noticed anxiety again. It's back, and I can feel it, and I can feel it underlying like the whole time, even before coming here today. And I was like, shit. I was like, I can feel it. And I was like, I know it's drinking alcohol, and I'm literally about to go on a bloody lads weekend away. I was like, right, after that, I was like, I'm probably going to nip it in the bud for a good month at least, right? And that's just because I know that the moment it doesn't serve me. Like it was okay in the moment, but I've started to see the second and third order consequence of that. So I just have to be aware of it. It's not about giving up like that client. It's two things. One, not about giving up the alcohol. It's finding okay, cool. Well, look, can we get a better balance? Is there maybe a reason as to get a better balance at certain times? There's going to be certain times that if weight loss is your focus at the moment because of the calories, etc., that you do maybe say no occasionally. That's just part of finding that balance, the reprioritization at the moment, right? It doesn't mean that you can't pick up drinking every weekend down the line. It's just at the moment, it doesn't fit in line with who you want to be and where you're looking to go. But also then looking at actually the outcome of it. Well, alcohol, yes, is going to contain calories, so it could be holding you back, but it doesn't seem like it is. So maybe it's looking at just a health perspective of drinking a little bit less. Anyway, it's actually the impact of your reaction to the scales. It's not the alcohol that's the issue. It's your reaction to the scales that the alcohol is causing. So drink less spikes, yes, but ultimately that's just addressing the problem, not the cause. The cause is that, right? So this is where you always have to look at everything in regards to the second and third order consequence, I think, as well, in relation to everything, because that's always really important, isn't it? We kind of look straight at the thing right, alcohol causing the spikes, quit the alcohol. And it's well, actually, the alcohol is causing spikes, yes, but the spikes are the issue. It's your reaction to it, right? The problem is the spikes, yes, but don't address that. Don't address the alcohol, which is the problem. The cause is your reaction to it. So the luteal phase, the last kind of 2 weeks, this is where it gets pretty tough. Progesterone's coming down. The kind of third week is you might start to see some things start to go up, isn't it, after ovulation? You might start to see some hunger, some bad sleep, but it's usually not as bad in that third week. It's the fourth week just before your cycle restarts, where it's that. So progesterone is then coming back down. Obviously, as you can see, like I said, 2 days or 3 days before, quite often with some of my clients, that's when the water retention happens or into the menses. One of the things, so we'll just kind of take it in turns. One of the things you find is an impact in your sleep. So you can start to find that you don't sleep as well. Your sleep's impacted. As we said in the previous podcast, sleep is something that can cause, if you don't have good sleep, it can cause an impact in your hunger. So you can consume up to 500 extra calories a day. Some studies have shown compared to 4 and 8 hours of sleep. You can therefore find that obviously craving's going to be up because you're hungry and tired. Motivation then is going to start to dip as well. And obviously then lethargy as well, like training, struggle getting your steps because you're lacking that energy too. So sleep is one thing that gets impacted. Over to you.
Yeah, well, you started to allude to that slightly, but just to add on from the sleep then is once you know your sleep's impaired, again, piled on top of estrogen being at a low point, you're going to feel more lethargic. You're going to feel more energyless. So I would say, we've said this before earlier, is like having that compassionate side of things is like what's the right word? I guess malleable. Be malleable. Like understand that because you have a training program, because you have a set system that you're following, be ready to adapt slightly.
Yeah.
Because there's been many clients where they've said to me, Hayden, I'm fit. Like when we're speaking to them in the week and they're saying to me they feel a bit lethargic, they just feel a bit rubbish this week, but they're like, I'm going to go to the gym later and like just hope I feel a bit better.
Yeah.
And I've said to them, instead of going to the gym, why don't you just go for an hour walk? Just go for a longer walk. Like, there's going to be not only
getting out in nature has proved to lower stress levels and better your mood.
Yeah, it's not just physical, but it's like psychological as well. Like it's going to massively just chuck on a podcast or something. Or
So it's not only sleep, like Hayden said. It's the mood, the motivation, estrogen drop in, and there's a drop in dopamine, which again is a feel good hormone. So if you've got low levels of that is going to impact your happiness, so to speak, in layman's terms. So if you're not feeling as good about yourself, if you're not feeling as uplifted in general, that's going to be also hard to get your steps, like you said, going to the gym, etc. So doing simple swaps like that. So one, prioritizing your sleep is going to be really good for that late luteal phase. Number two, like Hayden said, be self-compassionate, right? Give yourself a little bit of, and I always caveat that with like, there's be compassionate and then there's using it as an excuse, right? Don't use an excuse, but be compassionate about yourself. If you are feeling like pretty like meh and you don't feel like the gym, take that hour in the gym and go for an hour walk instead. Low level, low impact, and it's going to better your mood. Like Hayden said, the psychological impact is going to be like decent, isn't it? From a point of like, it's going to make you feel better. You feel better, well, you'll probably actually maybe pick up the gym the next day instead of today because maybe you're feeling a little bit uplifted as well.
Yeah, something else I'll add in is, I say this to a lot of my clients, you can probably get away with playing a little bit more calorie and macro Tetris in the second week of the follicular phase, where all things technically good. Like cravings a little bit lower. You can probably get away with doing your nutrition day by day. When it gets to the later luteal phase, especially like week 2, I always get my clients to just plan more. At the beginning of the week, you know that typically, again, it comes down to, don't use this as an excuse, but if you can feel that your hunger is higher, you feel like you're a bit more stressed, you feel like you've got you haven't got like as much energy and all of this stuff, you want to be planning out not just nutrition, but your workouts as well. It's like, okay, well, when am I going to be going for my steps? Make it more of like a regimented, I don't say that's not the right word. Have more of a structured approach.
You're leaving things less to chance, right?
Exactly.
Ultimately, if you don't plan things and make it easy, when you are tired, when you are cravings, you're then fighting against your emotions. You're having to use willpower and discipline. Everyone has it in different levels. And ultimately, if you are not in a good mood because of your progesterone's coming down and you're feeling a little meh, who do you think is going to win? Your willpower or your hormone? Your hormones are going to win every single time.
Yeah, exactly. So just having that planned element is going to be crucial. And that doesn't mean you necessarily need to batch cook all of these things.
Yeah.
It might just mean one client in particular in that week where she genuinely does really, really struggle in that last week, she just gets pre-done meals. The shop is pre-done meals.
Yeah, nice.
Because it's simplistic and it's like, it's just easy.
Yeah. That's such a key point, isn't it? It's like, don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Like, one of my clients is also knows that she really struggles with that. So she literally just sends me a meal plan for the week, right? And then she did it for that first because she was like, oh, I know what I'm like with like going into the kitchen and just like grabbing stuff on the go. So she was like, right, I think it's going to be best for me to plan. And I was like, cool. Like even when it comes to planning, it's like you could either just write down like your breakfast, lunch and dinners on a piece of paper for the week, right? At least even having that level of planning goes at, if you want to then actually like mark out how much of each of them you want, i.e. the ingredients, cool. Go a level further, mark down the ingredients. Again, if you want to put it all into MyFitnessPal for 3 days, cool, do that. Put it down for 3 days. Want to do the whole week in MyFitnessPal, pre-done, everything, cool. That's going to be like your top tier level. There's no right or wrong. It depends on also what you find is going to work for you. And just to kind of reverse back to the sleep there. So things like earlier nights are going to be great for you because ultimately you're just going to get more sleep. Blackout blinds, keeping the room dark, keeping the room cool as well is going to be helpful, and no scrolling on your phone. Try and read like 10 pages before good. Those are kind of like 3 or 4 set tips to kind of improve your sleep. There can be some benefits from magnesium. So if you're going to take magnesium for PMS, you could also take it for, I think it's 400 for magnesium glycinate. Can also seen some studies have shown in sleep as well. Not totally wholly conclusive, but I've found with clients that I have done that with, even if it's placebo, they've got better sleep since taking magnesium. I think it's 400 milligrams. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it is. Before sleep.
Yeah.
So
this is the thing, like with this whole like placebo chat. And again, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about intermittent fasting and stuff. And I wasn't saying to them like it's completely pointless for fat loss. Like it has its place if that is your suited style of eating.
Yeah.
But I was just saying, they were like, I found my adherence is so much better if I feel like my fat loss process is better if I do like the fast. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Do it then.
Yeah. Some of my clients don't eat till 11, don't eat till 12. I'm like, cool. You have to find what works for you. And I think kind of like just rounding this one up is that ultimately like everything we've said today about the follicular, about luteal, about ovulation, the typical things that you can see and some of the tips and tricks you can do, the ultimate thing is just tracking data. As I said at the beginning of the podcast, when it comes to managing your menstrual cycle, you have to understand that it's very individualistic and no cycle is the same. What you have to do is track it, collect data, and make data and logical driven decisions based on the feedback that you have got from your own data collection. There is no one size fits all. You shouldn't all increase your calories in the late luteal because you're going to get cravings. You shouldn't all then go for PBs and ovulation because you have a spike in testosterone, and no one's always going to see a massive spike in their water weight, so they have to always use the anchor method. It's all about finding what works for you. These are the tools. These are the kind of typical signs and symptoms. It's now about using your own head. As Hayden always says, be your own scientist, put that cap on, put your coat on, and then get in the trenches and kind of work out, what it is that we're going to do. And ultimately, if you don't want to get in the trenches and you don't want to work out yourself, you can jump on board and invest in a couple of handsome chaps like us to do the hard work for you.
I love that. But just lastly, you can't manage what you don't measure.
Yeah.
And this is like with the data tracking, why it's so important. Because this is why our clients love it when we show them the trends, where we can actually objectively take a bird's eye view and say, we can see in this part every single month, your cravings are higher, you're more lethargic, look, you're getting your weight spikes. And we can articulate this back to our clients and we can show them how much easier does their weight loss journey become and how much more predictable is it? Because they don't freak out when it gets back to that following month where the weight spikes up, cortisol's higher, all of those things, because they know it's going to happen and they know what to do and how to react after it. But without having the data, they can't manage anything. They can't manage their expectations. In their head, they've just ruined their progress.
Yeah, you're ruled by your... one of the biggest struggles that women will have is you will be ruled by your emotions.
Yeah. And that completely takes that out. It's like when you understand the data tracking principle of it and you understand how to properly manage and track like the cycle, an emotion's taken out of it, and then you have this foolproof plan that you can follow.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Let's run it up here, team. Hopefully you enjoyed that episode of the podcast, all about female fat loss optimization and all about the occasional rants that Ryan and Hayden go off on. As per usual, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're ever struggling and you want a little bit more help in regards to how to make your weight loss journey a shed ton easier and lose up to 30 pounds in 90 days, then just drop either of us a little message with the word coaching and we can give you some more info on exactly how we work with our clients on a one-to-one basis. Apart from that, see you in the next episode.
Party over.